If Trump wins, let's say you think Bitcoin's going to go to the low 80s, like very quickly, that would be kind of my base case. And let's say if Kamala wins, you think you're going to go sweep the lows very quickly, say high 40s. If you think it's a coin flip, if you think the election is a coin flip, then fair value is like 65-ish. It would be my base case that there will be a meaningful dip in Bitcoin's price if Harris wins. But I don't know if it's going to be all that deep or all that long.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Coinage. I'm your host, Zach Guzman, coming to you live from our Brooklyn studios in New York City as we are approaching a huge week, a few weeks, actually, as we wrap up the campaigns right now between Vice President Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And also, of course, watching what's happening with not just Bitcoin, but meme coins. A lot to get into today, and very happy to have back on Coinage with us Travis Kling, the founder of Ikigai Asset Management. Travis, good to see you, man.
Zach, what's going on? Another beautiful day in crypto land here.
Always beautiful days in crypto land, my friend. Good to see you again. A lot to get into. I figure, as we always love to do, just basically get Travis Kling's pulse of what the hell is happening in crypto. How you been feeling about everything? Because it looked like we were going to pierce through all-time highs, now taking a bit of a breather this week.
Let's see here. I mean, it definitely feels like all eyes on the election for sure. And poly market is way, way out in front. And, I would say is reasonably divorced from polls. And there's been conjecture about why that is. And there's the Freddie 999 account or whatever. And a few other, I think, pretty big whales. The poly market, the order books aren't really that deep, so it doesn't take all that much capital to move these lines significantly. And so, I don't think of that you have right there as being reflective of the chances. I think the race is tighter than that. I have definitely been spending a fair amount of time trying to parse through the early voter data and the registration data. Different states report different things on a day-to-day basis, different levels of granularity. There's folks, political pundit type of folks that kind of slice and dice that data, and then you can look at it on a period over period basis and try and glean some insights into how things are going in various states. I've been paying attention to that. It's a little hard to like definitively kind of know where things are. Like, for example, in 2020, because of COVID, there was like way, way more early voting than like any other thing. So then you try and like normalize that for this go around. But it's like, well, how do you know if you're sort of like accurately normalizing some of the early voting data that's coming in? So I think it's without a doubt has moved in favor of Trump over the last 3 weeks. I think that you can say for sure.
Yeah,
I think it is still quite tight. It seems like it's very tight in Pennsylvania.
It does. It does. I mean, all the swing states do honestly look quite close. And obviously, perhaps that's why Elon Musk himself is getting so involved in some of those states, including mostly Pennsylvania right now. But I think, if you look at the chart as well over here, I mean, Travis, you've been watching everything play out for this year. And in the run up, as we were kind of approaching 70K over the weekend, it did seem like, ETF flows were coming back strong. They've taken a bit of a step back now this week. Just kind of, I'm not entirely sure why that would be the case, obviously. If it was triggered by Trump's surge up, I'm not sure if we've seen any tick down this week from Kamala that might cause, some of those funds to reverse. But kind of, I mean, technically here, you're a guy who looks at the numbers beyond just the election polls. I mean, it seems like, is that really, you think, what's fully steering the ship at this point?
With Bitcoin, yeah. No, I think it mostly is. I think people are I think there's a lot of market participants, traditional types of capital that would be pretty frozen up in advance of the election when it's as close as it is. Another thing that I looked at recently was like, let's say you think Bitcoin's going to go, if Trump wins, let's say you think Bitcoin's going to go to the low 80s like very quickly, that would be kind of my base case, not
Mm-hmm.
financial advice. I'm wrong often. And let's say if Kamala wins, you think you're going to go sweep the lows very quickly, say high 40s. And if you think it's a coin flip, if you think the election is a coin flip, then fair value is like 65-ish. And
Yeah,
that's,
just basically.
yeah, that's like right around where we are. We went a little bit higher than that. Now we're coming back towards that. We were a little bit below that. Then we kind of came up towards that. So we're kind of like circling that around. And then maybe if you think it's 55-45 Trump, then obviously, you'd be up into the kind of, 67, 68 kind of range with those types of likelihoods. So I think maybe it is like sort of fairish value around here. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that
One
that's kind
more
of.
thing. Sorry, one more thing I want to say on Bitcoin. I'm increasingly becoming less. I there it would be my base case that there will be a meaningful dip in Bitcoin's price if Harris wins, but I don't know if it's going to be all that deep or all that long. Honestly,
What's kind of
I'm really.
hilarious, to be honest with you, what's kind of hilarious is, it was only like a couple weeks ago we were chatting with Caitlin Long about Trump's potential huge rally in crypto, and the idea, she challenged that with the idea of like, well, if he picked Jamie Dimon for his treasury secretary, would that be that great? And now you had headlines of Kamala Harris potentially floating Jamie Dimon as her treasury secretary. So it's like, it's kind of funny to see. I don't know the reality of either one of those actually happening, but for him to be floated in kind of both camps, for a guy who like traditionally has always said like, don't touch Bitcoin and don't ask me about it, and has backed off that stance, it's just kind of funny to think about how different some
Yeah.
of these policies actually will be. I think the bigger one, and we're going to be chatting with Perry Ann Boring tomorrow about this, is where Congress goes. And Politico just wrote up a great article kind of focusing on how Congress is now potentially going to be the most pro-crypto it's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to dig into those races with her, because I think on the margin, those might actually do more depending on who gains control of the banking committees. But I guess we'll see. We'll have to see on that. Outside of Bitcoin, though, Travis, obviously, the last time we had you on, as I always love to discuss with you, much more of a Bitcoin therapy kind of type of session than it is, I guess, just price. It's how are we feeling? It's who has hurt you and what is in your heart. And I like those conversations more because we've heard from Murad. Murad's been the talk of the town when it comes to meme coins and this idea of community and everything. I will come out and say I disagree fervently. However, I am being proven wrong on some fronts. That front right now, the most talked about, would be this chart over here, the GOAT chart. One of those meme coins that you and I should dig into here, because I think maybe we probably both agree that it is pretty fascinating to think about an AI agent, if you want to call it that, or AI controlling one of these communities and doing what it wants to do with the coin. I guess, what's your take on what we're seeing with meme coins in general before we get into GOAT, and your kind of idea on what we've heard from Murad? And for those who don't know about Murad, maybe we should just play a clip here to kind of show what he's all about in terms of his take on meme coins. Here's a little bit of his chat, just real quick, 10 seconds from his chat at Token not too long ago. Take a listen.
Just briefly, NFTs, I think meme coins are going to go much higher, because instead of having 3,000 people promoting 10,000 illiquid JPEGs, you now have 100,000 people promoting one single liquid token. This is how I see the meme coin space evolving. You want to be focused on things that are going to become cults, brands, or movements.
Cults, brands, and movements. That's what he's betting on. Travis, what say you?
Let's see here. What do I want to say about this? So the rise of meme coin mania, in my view, is a direct response to the lack of significant traction for alt use cases, excluding stablecoins. Bitcoin has product market fit, stablecoins have product market fit, and everything else is, a solution looking for a problem at best, and most of it is just a monumental grift, a vaporware grift, basically. And this is a big problem in the alt market structure. And crypto VCs, the market structure that is in place for early stage crypto investing is such that crypto VCs can generate really good returns and become fabulously wealthy as a result with a portfolio that doesn't do anything and doesn't really have a modicum of success on any kind of reasonable scale. And that's a very strange thing. That's not true in traditional venture capital. I mean, traditional VC, you always hit a lot of zeros. That's just the nature of the business. But your winners, make up for the zeros that you hit, right? But you can't look at a traditional venture capital firm that has generated really good returns and look at the portfolio and just not see anything that did anything. And that's not true in crypto VC because of this market structure of being able to invest really early at a low valuation, and then you launch the token on a centralized exchange, and then you pay a market maker an exorbitant amount in a structure where the market maker wins no matter what. Yeah. And then the token gets launched at such a high FDV that the token price can be down only and the project can do jack shit. But because the VC invested at such a low valuation, they still generate 5, 10, 25, 50 times their money. Yeah. And so this is a big problem. This is a big problem for the alt ecosystem. And something has to change where that type of behavior, you can't really blame the VCs. Like that, I'm not really trying to people are going to do what they're incentivized to do. And so I'm not trying to sit here and just shit all over the VCs. I mean, I'm doing a little bit of that, but the point here is that there's a big misalignment of incentives going on right now. And meme coins and the capital and the attention, the eyeballs that meme coins are drawing in, they're taking that away from these alts that don't do anything. And so you're kind of pulling the curtain back a little bit. And I think that is starting to act as a forcing function on the alt market structure that hopefully ends up causing some change that makes for something that's more sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo a lot of that in terms of the shell game that we've seen play out with altcoins and all these other kind of quote unquote Ethereum killers that have launched, and the idea of trying to show that it's all about the tech. I'll play another piece of what he said just because it's the part that I agree with. It's the part that you just made in terms of all of this stuff mostly being vaporware. And does retail really care about it? If all you're doing is betting on the token, there are other ways to go about that might be more friendly than what you just described. Here's his other point. We'll give him his credit where credit is due on this point, and then I want to basically disagree with it on the other side.
Does retail care about some blockchain being slightly more private? No. Do they care about some blockchain being slightly faster? No. Do they care about ZK snarks? No. What do they care about? Let's be real. They care about making money, they care about having fun, and they care about belonging somewhere.
Now, listen, I would agree with what you said, Travis, in terms of product market fit being there for Bitcoin and being there for stable coins. And I kind of understand what he's trying to say in terms of the product is the token, not the things that you're trying to lie to retail about that the token's going to do. So I understand the idea. Where I disagree is the idea that just purely, again, giving into speculation and not having any real use case beyond buying this thing and selling it at a higher price is a better way to form community on the internet in the era of Web3 than what potentially could be offered by what we're trying to do here at Coinage in terms of buying into a cooperative membership, steering it together, and having the value accrual go back to kind of a central entity that everyone can control with us, versus the idea of, okay, we've just got a bunch of token holders there, but because it's all to the values accruing to the token, it's not really accruing to one token. It's accruing to all the tokens that could potentially be sold in the open market. So I'm not sure if I agree wholeheartedly with what Murad's saying here.
I agree with you. No, his little pyramid and then the neo-religion thing all the way at the top strikes me as sort of an over-exaggeration. That would be my base case. I can imagine a world where what he is saying comes to fruition, it would not be my base case, or at least not over the next few years. Maybe you squint and imagine, say, a decade or 20 years from now, and you're in some Ready Player One strange dystopia thing, and okay, baby. But in the near term, it's like, what is the amount of capital, like this meme coin mania thing, like what is the scale of inflow that this sector is going to be able to garner, and what are the circumstances through which you would be able to garner very significant capital inflows that sort of allows the types of market caps that Murad has talked about for this cycle, for this stuff, which is, these really big numbers that he's talking about. I struggle to see that. As my base case. I struggle there.
Well, let's talk about one.
The last thing I'll say on that is that, so I say all that in one hand, and then I think in the other hand, if you were like, do I think a basket of meme coins is going to outperform the broader market over the next 12 months? Honestly, yeah, probably. And then it's like, okay, well, how are you going to pick the basket? Yeah. And then it's like, well, do you want to just pick Murad's basket? And then I'm like, is Murad's basket going to outperform the broader market over the next 12 months? Would that be my base case? Probably, actually.
Oh my God, what are we doing? Yeah. This gets me back to your point from before, which is like, what are we really doing here? Can it really be the case? Because is that better?
You need to think about it. You need to think about it competing with parlays. This is a competitor against a 3-leg, 5-leg, 10-leg parlay. And I think of the pools of capital. It's like I think you're pulling more from the same potential pools of capital. It's the same type of market participants. It has, a similar type of risk profile. And maybe the community aspect of a meme coin that's ripping. There's a fun factor that is maybe a comparable fun factor to sitting on the couch with your boys, drinking beers on a Saturday, and you're like 4 legs through the 7-leg parlay, and you're like hoping for the last 3 to hit or something, Yeah.
I just don't. I mean, I don't know how much better it is, the idea that market makers and VCs are the ones winning and dumping versus the idea of like KOLs who can go out there and say like, these are the meme coins that are going to hit, get early allocation, and like dump those. I don't know if it's any necessarily better than like. So I don't know. I let's talk about one in particular though before I lose my mind too much. Maybe because then it becomes more fun if we just focus on one of these. And I think a lot of people who might be in my camp, your camp, or Murad's camp are generally interested in kind of what's happening with GOAT. GOAT is one of those ones, as we said, that kind of came out of nowhere in terms of Mark Andreessen also, I think, threw like a good amount of change into this just to kind of see what happens. And it's the idea of letting an AI agent run with kind of a meme coin community.
So importantly, so Mark did not actually put money into GOAT. Mark gave Terminal of Truth's $50,000 worth of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Which is that's a sort of a notable difference. But Mark is very interested. Him and Ben Horowitz, his partner, they just did a podcast, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, like discussing this thing. So they are finding it to be very interesting.
I find it quite interesting.
Have you talked about it on here before? Or?
Not really. I mean, we mentioned it a little bit on Monday, and if we did and people saw it, they'd be up 3x, I believe, by now here on Wednesday. So not a bad return for 2 days. But I think what is fascinating about it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this point too, is just kind of the idea of where it came from and how it's being run is, I think the sell-off was triggered by a typo in one of the tweets, and people were like, okay, maybe it's human run and it's not really AI run. I don't know how much anything is fully AI run at this current stage of AI right now. But the idea of kind of instead of something be more human run than not, I think GOAT out there is maybe the shining first example of what can you do if you actually have these things fully run by AI. And I don't know if that's why you're excited about it too.
So maybe I'll try and This is a strange thing, so it's kind of hard to give the like 60-second explanation of the deal.
Exactly.
I mean, it's very strange and very unique, and that's part of the reason why it's so fascinating is because it does not look like anything we have seen previously, but it does look like the future. It feels like that. It feels like I think people use that term like a postcard from the future, and so it's basically like this guy. This like AI researcher guy he created a website where he was taking instances of Claude Opus and having them two instances talk to each other unsupervised in a chat room and then logging these chats. So it's just two Claude Opuses going back and forth with one another, talking about whatever they're going to talk about. And they kind of start talking about, it gets pretty weird back there. The name of this website's Infinite Backrooms. It's kind of eerie, interesting, strange, fantastical. And then he trains in a like an open source LLM. He like trains it on these backroom chat logs, but then also trains it on like 4chan and Reddit. And then the sort of interface for this LLM that has been trained on this data is this thing called Terminal of Truths, which is has an Instagram account. A Twitter account now, and then tweets, and it tweets. Its tweets are supervised, but not written by the dev on this deal, the AI, this AI researcher guy. And so this Terminal of Truths thing is like, this thing starts tweeting, I think back like late spring of this year, something like that. And then it gets Mark Andreessen to give it $50,000 worth of Bitcoin in July. And it starts to tweet about this, like, it kind of comes up with this neo-religion thing that it calls the gnosis of Goatsy, or Goatsy gnosis, which is based on this like extremely crude meme, which I will not go into detail here. This is like an existing internet meme that's 10 out of 10 crude. People, if they want to understand what it is, can look it up. But this thing kind of comes up with this like neo-religion thing, starts talking about hyperstition and like mimetic, all this blah 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 stuff. Strange, interesting, and because of the way that it was trained, this thing doesn't talk like any other LLM. You've never seen an LLM talk like this before, so it's kind of like jailbroken, like in a way, basically.
Yeah.
And so that in and of itself is like pretty interesting. And so then somebody created a meme coin, ticker GOAT, Goatius Maximus, that goes along with this like neo-religion that Terminal of Truths is talking about. And then they create this on pump.fun and then give Terminal of Truths like the wallet address for Terminal of Truths. Like they send some of this GOAT meme coin to this thing. And then Terminal of Truth starts to like tweet bullishly about GOAT. So then GOAT starts ripping. So then GOAT gets to like $300 million market cap faster than any pump.fun thing ever. It's like the fastest I think it got to 20,000 holders faster than any meme coin ever. And so as of right now, GOAT is truly a meme coin that was just created by some guy, and then that guy gave it to this AI agent. But because the price ran so much, this AI agent then became a millionaire and is now a millionaire, and maybe now have a net worth of like maybe closer to $2 million now. And so all of this is like starting to get people's wheels turning a lot about the idea of an AI agent garnering economic resources, and then starting to think through like, okay, well then what, right? And none of the then what has happened yet in GOAT, but people are really kind of starting to think, okay, well then what? Which is like, part of the reason why this is so interesting is because the alt landscape that exists currently is so uninteresting, right? This is this is sort of existing in a backdrop of a sea of uninteresting shit in alts.
Yeah.
This is like very interesting, right?
Well, it's because I think what's the most interesting part to you though? Because to me, the most interesting part is the what next, and I think the what next could be what happens when suddenly you arm an AI LLM with $2 million. What will it do with it? I think
Correct.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. If nothing else happens other than like if there's no now what that comes next, then this is like pretty boring and also probably not that valuable. And it just goes into it's just another meme coin alongside a lot of other meme coins.
Yeah.
If Terminal of Truths or there's other now people are trying to spin up these other things. It's kind of hard to recreate Terminal of Truths actually because of the way it was trained was very unique. But but if it starts doing things, with these economic resources that it's garnered, that to me feels like a new sector. That feels like a DeFi moment, like a play to earn moment. Like a DPIN kind of like this feels like a new sector to me. And it's, immediately connected to, the hottest sector on planet Earth right now, right? Yeah. LLMs, AI, AI type of stuff. And it feels inevitable. I think if you talk to any futurist and you're like, hey, what about an AI agent like conducting itself with economic resources, and any futurist would be like, oh yeah, that's definitely going to happen, and here's like some ways that it could happen, and blah blah. Sure. So it's like that's what I mean by like a postcard from the future kind of thing. So it's very I think I'm going to write my next monthly about this. I need to kind of gather my thoughts and maybe come up with a list of like the interesting things that could happen. There's even like simple stuff like you're like, okay, this Terminal of Truths now has a viral Twitter account. Now it has earnings on Twitter. It's going to like take the earnings and like buy back and burn GOAT token. Like just for example.
Yeah,
right.
It'd be pretty easy to imagine a future where that happens. I think the other one too that comes to mind is the idea, and this is perhaps a little bit more in the realm of easily believable, but surprised that it hasn't necessarily happened at scale yet. Maybe is just the idea of like kind of virtual models, eCam models, if you want to call them that. The idea of like what happens if you could just arm AI to do all that, especially as like video generation happens. But I'm not sure if that necessarily is a positive. I guess it is if you want to take no stance whatsoever from a moral compass perspective. It is what it is. Perhaps a business opportunity is a business opportunity. Will Michaela's one of those AI agents out there right now that's kind of got 3 million followers on Instagram, not a real person. That was kind of like one of the old pieces. But when you compare and connect money and the idea of money generation with AI agents, I think that's kind of, to me at least, where GOAT gets interesting and why it's kind of cool and different, as you said. And why it's captured, I think, so much attention. Now, the question is to you, Travis Kling, is how do you trade it? Because I almost bought on Monday, as we said, as we discussed on the Monday recap show. It was down at like 300 back then. Now we're looking at about 800 million. So it's close to a 3x there in 2 days. Murad's point was that you might see a meme coin hit $1 billion. That's basically upon us now, perhaps. So, but I don't know how you value it. I don't know if that's even possible.
Yeah, I really don't want to make a comment on that. I mean, I would just, maybe wait till it does another big pullback and then think about it. And, when it pulls back, try and understand why, it pulled back last time because it made a typo in a tweet and people were like, oh, LLMs can't make typos. So this is like, not a real AI that's like behind these tweets, which, I think that turned out to be sort of not the case.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm sure it's going to do some other big pullback. These things are insanely volatile. So, but I have no sense of, the risks around this are enormous and unquantifiable. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's just, you need to be very eyes wide open about that. Yeah. Yeah, it's more. I mean, I understand people are trying to make money and stuff like that. It's more interesting, sort of directionally, intellectually, as a new kind of use case, a new type of like human coordination tool kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of like interesting questions. Like, it's like, is an AI a better leader than a human?
Yeah.
In the crypto ecosystem? Like, it's like, is it so hard? You've heard me, I mean, you and I talked about the leadership vacuum in crypto. We've been talking about that for a while here, right?
It's like
And
2 years now. Yeah.
and now it's like, I mean, it's quite interesting that you're like, oh, maybe we fill that leadership vacuum with some software code, and
With
like
like
maybe
AI
that's
agent
going to be able to.
characters. It's not a bad idea. I mean, like, I think something about it perhaps eventually needs to evolve to be visual. Like I said, I just showed little Michaela because it's like a person that you can see on Instagram, so it feels a little bit more human rather than just kind of like tweets. And maybe that's the next iteration of this. And again, it's not too hard to squint your eyes and see that be the next iteration of this. In fact, there's a few projects right now that are kind of already playing around with like animated characters, but I feel like it looks a little bit different once you shift away from animated characters to kind of human quasi-looking characters. But yes, I think it's very easy to now see where this is heading, and it is fascinating. I would agree with that. It almost seems less fun to turn this back to reality, Travis, but there are two other questions that I had for you more in that camp, which I suppose originally has to do with what we opened with, which is kind of Bitcoin options coming to market now and what potential impacts when you pair that with the election, what it could have for the overall crypto market, just because we talked with Caitlin Long a couple weeks ago as well, and she's kind of been pretty adamant about the idea of Wall Street entering the world of Bitcoin and crypto so quickly now that it's a bit of a double-edged sword. So I just want to play what she told us and then get your take, since you're an expert in this space and kind of straddling TradFi and crypto, what the impacts as we're about to watch these unfold, what it'll be. Take a listen to what she said, and then we'll get your take on the other side.
Well, this gets into some of the theory of whether derivatives drive the underlying spot price, because an ETF is a derivative. And then an option on an ETF is a derivative on a derivative. And so there's a lot of leverage on the derivative, specifically the ETF, clearly, right? And there's even more coming now with options. This is why I've said all along, the ETFs are a double-edged sword. Wall Street coming is a double-edged sword.
All right, so Wall Street coming, double-edged sword. Obviously, I guess if we're running up because of inflows from the ETFs, you throw options on top of that. What's Travis Kling's take in terms of what options might do for some of the volatility we're seeing play out?
Yeah. Have you talked to anybody about the timeline? Anybody have an informed opinion on the timeline that these things actually start trading?
I mean, the SEC approved them, and then I think the CFTC is the last one, right? That like needs to like sign off on
OCC as well too.
Yeah, and so like that could all play out. I don't know how quickly it happens, but it does seem like it's a matter of days, if not weeks.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the exact timing. So I think it's kind of, whether or not that happens before or after the election. I mean, it seems like it's probably not going to happen before the election. I mean, unless it just happened, obviously, unless it happens really, really quickly. That's a huge event that it would be nice to be able to move around volatility, be able to buy and sell volatility around that. But I think they're going to come sort of right after. Different people have kind of come different ways on this. It would not be my immediate knee-jerk reaction to think that the base case is that you get a big gamma squeeze on as a result of this. That would not be my base case. There's been guys that have talked about that. I think it's the Jeff Park. Is that guy's name? I think he's the Van Eck guy or the Bitwise guy. Anyways, he had like a super viral post because it was very like sort of,
up only.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, we're gonna have like this like massive gamma squeeze, Bitcoin to the moon, blah blah blah." It's possible. It would not be my base case. I think it's more likely that over time it's going to be directionally price positive for Bitcoin, because I think it really opens the door for big chunks of capital to come into Bitcoin that were previously, hesitant or just unable to, because you can buy downside protection. Boomers hate the big drawdowns in Bitcoin. They're terrified of them. It's like the single most, one of the most terrifying aspects of, it's like, the most terrifying things to boomers about Bitcoin is the private key and the volatility, right? And the ETF, okay, now you don't have to deal with the private key anymore, and now you can buy puts, and so now you've like solved the downside volatility as well too. Also, the other side of that is like boomers love yield, right? So you can do a covered call strategy, you can generate some yield on your Bitcoin. Boomers love to generate yield. And so I think that this just allows for a lot more capital to come into the space. I'm sure there will be all manner of structured products around these things. And that just strikes me as directionally price positive and also volatility dampening over time. That you're just it'll create more of this kind of just grind up type of price action. And I understand Caitlin's point about, like, to me, for Bitcoin to get much bigger, it's like there's two paths. One path is it gets increasingly more institutionalized, and the other path is this like Mad Max dystopian fiat currency collapse thing, and like that's like the other way. And like the latter, would not be my base case. It doesn't look to me, I don't see the dollar looks like it's doing great, to be honest with you. I don't see any like huge alarm bells going off about. Now, I think that's not necessarily true about the yen or the euro or the British pound. So I think eventually the chickens do come home to roost for those. Yeah. But all of those are going to be the collapse of any other competitor fiat currency is going to be dollar strengthening, right? The dollar is going to be ripping higher while the yen collapses, whenever that may be, 5, 10, 30 years from now, whatever. So I don't think that like this sort of like dystopian Mad Max thing. And so to me, that means that if Bitcoin's going to go higher, it's going to go higher because it's going to get increasingly more institutionalized. And so this Bitcoin is pristine collateral. It's competing against U.S. Treasuries as the collateral foundation for the global financial system. I think you and I have talked about this before. I've talked about it many times publicly. And so unfortunately, if you're competing against U.S. Treasuries, this is the most institutional financial instrument on planet Earth. And so it's just going to get more institutionalized.
With that, though, I guess, I think...
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that I guess the takeaway for all of this is if it is going to get more institutionalized and volatility is coming down, I think the sad part is that a lot of people have been indoctrinated to not look at Bitcoin as that, right? They've been trained to look at it as volatile, as risky, as all these things that Bitcoin was. Maybe the last time they really took a look at it in 2014, 2015. And I feel like even when I talk to friends, it's like, the 60-40 rule of kind of like how you should be allocated. It's like there are plenty of people who are very smart and educated that have 0% portfolio allocation to Bitcoin. And it's like, it's not what it was. It's not what it was 10 years ago, but they still think it is. And like they can't wrap their brains around the evolution of an asset because no asset has moved as quickly as Bitcoin. And so it's like really a strange place to be in, I think, for you, for me, for anyone else in the space, to like basically just have people be confused about that and not know what number to give them in terms of like, look, we can agree maybe no one really knows the right 60-40 number for like Bitcoin should be in a portfolio, but we can all agree it's not zero.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the nice tailwinds around that is like the great wealth transfer, right? That like surveys are just very clear that the younger you are, the more sense you think Bitcoin makes and the less sense you think gold makes. The older you are, the vice versa is true, and eventually, boomers are going to give up the ghost and that wealth is going to get transferred to the next generation. And it seems, pretty clear to me that generation is going to buy Bitcoin. I think you can argue that they are going to buy some amount of meme coins. They're going to sports gamble, all the financial nihilism stuff that I've been talking about for a while.
Yeah, gotta be careful. Gotta be careful with some of those things. That's why I like Sean Farrell basically came on and told us that like the right allocation is like I think 5% in meme coins and like most to like Bitcoin. And like I don't know what the right number is. I don't know what to tell people, and I guess it depends on where you're at in your life stage. But like again, definitely not zero. The other thing too, Travis, I haven't seen you since this happened, but I was just at the courthouse for Caroline Ellison's sentencing. We're going to have Nishad Singh sentenced next in the FTX debacle. I don't know if you saw that and reacted anyway, but she got 2 years. Again, tying this back to reality hits hard when you're staring prison time down and you're in the room and the judge is delivering this. As I mentioned, Judge Kaplan, very interesting to watch him kind of land on sentencing. I don't know if you think anything about the fairness of kind of justice being served in these crypto cases as we watch them play out. But a lot of people were surprised by that. Bernie Madoff's old prosecutor told us that he didn't expect her to get any prison time, and she got 2 years. I guess it's justice served. A lot of people are saying it's not enough time.
I don't know if I necessarily have a strong view on Caroline. 2 years, I guess, feels fine to me. 25, and you got to serve mandatory. It's mandatory 80%, I think, right?
Yeah.
For federal sentences like that. So I think to me, Sam getting 25, that felt about right. With a mandatory 80%. He's going to appeal. I saw that he's going to appeal those. I'm sure he's just going to keep fighting. And there's when he was getting ready to be sentenced, I went back and looked at some of the large white collar crime, like historically. And there is precedent for these guys getting these charges knocked down over a multi-year appeals process, because they've got the money for the best lawyers in the world, and these lawyers are just sitting there like grinding away, trying to find any hole in the process. I think it was like Jeff Skilling that got 20-something years and then just only served like half of it or something like that because he got the charges knocked down. If Sam did 10 instead of 20, like that definitely feels light to me. But you're getting into like a criminal justice theory type of question where it's like punishment versus like deterrence. Yeah. I think as somebody that stayed in the crypto market, it's like you do think about the deterrence aspect of this, where you go like, is the crypto ecosystem better off because bad actors are like less likely to act really bad because of that sentence?
Yeah.
And if you'd have given him 50 years instead of 25 years, would you have increased that relative to like the fairness of 50 years to Sam versus, and I won't pretend to be any kind of expert.
No, but it is. That was exactly what the judge said in terms of where he landed. And it was a winding road. Honestly, it was like a little bit of an M. Night Shyamalan ending, because it was just like, hey, everything's kind of, not that bad. And then at the end, he's like, but also this is one of the largest financial crimes in history. And so we can't let you go with no prison time. And so here you go, 2 years. And so, I guess we'll see what happens with Nishad sentencing in terms of October 30th. It's a week from today. But if you're sitting there and you're even more involved than Caroline was, I think is generally what you got from the courtroom, it's going to be larger than 2 years. And I think probably closer to 25. So we'll see what plays out there. But you did you hit the nail on the head when it comes to how the judge at least was thinking about it. And obviously we covered that from the courtroom, but I just had to ask, obviously, given how much you and I have talked about the FTX collapse, and now that it's moved on, I think we've all moved on past it, which is for the best anyways. And I know you've got bigger things to do now. So, again, here we are still talking about things. The space has obviously evolved. We're talking about goat coins now. Who the hell knows what we'll be chatting about next time we have you on, Travis. But I always got to say, love having you on the show. You're a good man. You're a friend of the show. I think you're at Coinage. Also, you're in the community now, so you're also one of us.
I am.
But thank you so much for coming on, man. It's good to see you again, per usual. And thank you again for the time.
Yeah, a pleasure. As always, Zach. We'll do another one after the election.
Right on, dude. Yeah, we'll be watching. We'll see what happens with all that, as everyone in crypto is. That's Travis Kling. I'm Zach Guzman. Per usual, we thank you for tuning in. You can catch all the biggest headlines with us at coinage.media. We'll see you again soon.